Hello and good afternoon. I am Jamie Buckland with the West Virginia Few Families United for Education. And we put out an update earlier today, a blog post on WVSSAC Access and the modified rules and updates in order to be compliant with policy that was passed this past session. And so I wanted to come on and for those who consume information better via video, give you a verbal update. You can find this information in a blog post that we posted, our first blog post for the poor little West Virginia Few site that is up and coming. I'll link to that in the comments. But I know that we are way late on this because normally over the last 3 years, we start working with parents to ensure that they're actually ready to go on July 1st because that's when the new academic year begins. And that is when shortly thereafter, they're actually able to begin practicing with WVSSAC. So we normally like to have this done a little bit earlier, but there were some big changes made and the State Board of Education met and approved several proposals. And so we are, and we waited to confirm with WVSSAC on any guidance that we were going to offer. So I appreciate your patience in waiting for us to get this together for you. So let's talk a little bit about the resources that are available. Back in 2020, when I was the legislative liaison for the Raleigh Educational Association of Christian Homeschoolers, REACH here in Southern West Virginia, we launched a Facebook group and a Facebook page, West Virginia Homeschoolers for SSAC Access. And we grew that audience. I think the page is like close to 1,000. I don't know how many are in the group. And it's been a lot to maintain and to try to do that via social media. It's actually what helped influence me to not offer navigation services via social media and to direct all traffic through email so that you get individual guidance and it doesn't create confusion when you're telling one person they can do something and others read that and think maybe that is applicable to their situation. And so we've been trying to figure out what we were going to do with that group. We've got a group of amazing parent volunteers that are helping to actually lead the efforts for SSAC parent navigation. And they are going to be assisting us in keeping that group up, really to answer any basic questions that we can and to direct traffic to adequate resources. So the blog post is going to be the number one resource that we're going to direct traffic to. And there is a Facebook group. It's the sports club. So if you're working with friends, you're talking, and somebody's asking questions about SSAC, you can say, "Are you in the sports club?" And they'll say, "What?" And you'll say, "The West Virginia Few, the sports club." And that's where they can go to begin to get connected with our organization to make sure they get the answers to their questions. So the Facebook group is a private group, and I can't make that public now, but you can invite them to the club, to the sports club, and we'll get them assistance from that point. So I want to direct traffic to both of those resources. In addition to that, I do want to thank the lawmakers that really worked this past session to make this stuff happen. My work has really been mostly in implementation, not in any lobbying efforts to influence legislation. And so I was incredibly thankful for the work and dedication that Senator Patricia Rucker and Delegate Kathy Kraus and Delegate Adam Burkhammer put into this to see it come to fruition. I know there were others involved, but those are the ones that I have collaborated with or talked with the most on the access. And so I'm just very thankful for their work and dedication in getting this through, including the change of an interpretation that is absolutely, hands down, in my opinion, the biggest advancement for our students because they were required to hit a fourth stay 9 within or above 4 stay 9 in each of the 5 subjects. And now we're going to take that average. And that is largely due to the work of Kathy Kraus. So thank you, Kathy, for doing that for the youth of West Virginia. So those are the resources. Those are the thank yous. Of course, I'm incredibly grateful for WVSSAC. Under the leadership of Bernie Dolan over the last few years, they've collaborated with us really well for implementation. And I'm excited to be continuing work with David Price, who I've worked with over the last few years as he was the superintendent down in my neck of the woods in Raleigh County. And of course, the assistant executive directors, Dan, new to the team, Wayne and Cindy. I had a conference call with all of them earlier this week to confirm these details, and very thankful for their collaborative spirit in helping us ensure that we get you all the information that you need. One of the best resources that we have is our visual graphic, the profile chart. Again, you'll find that in the blog post, and you can look at what your student's profile is and determine if they need a test score or a 2.0 in order to be eligible. Basically, if they are enrolled in a school, they're going to need that 2.0. If they are being educated outside of a conventional school, whether that's the public school, virtual school, private school, what have you, and this includes micro schools. If they're enrolled in a micro school, they're going to need test scores. If your student hasn't already tested, there's still time. We recommend the abbreviated battery through the Stanford 10 test. On CN testing, there's a link to that in the blog post. Your student still has time to take that test and get those test scores in order to be eligible. So keep in mind what you will need is test scores. Again, the average of that, if your student's outside of the system, if they're enrolled in a school, you're going to need a 2.0 GPA, meaning that at the end of the 22-23 academic year, that student would have needed that 2.0 for that semester to come into the fall programs. Keep in mind, if you have a rising sixth grader, they do not need to demonstrate academic eligibility because rising sixth graders don't have to do that in traditional public schools. So they're not going to have to do that if they're educated outside of that conventional system. So a rising sixth grader would not need to present test scores. You do need to be up to date on your vaccines with a well visit. The physical form is linked to in the blog post. You need to make sure that you have that physical completed. And then any other additional requirements that the school may have in order to enroll as a student will be expected of those participating with WVSSAC. So proof of residency, birth certificate, those type of documentation, the proof of residency, birth certificate, anything like that they need, to enroll you, you're going to want to have that together. We have republished our directory that we had not had live since February because we didn't have the manpower to keep it updated. So really excited to republish that resource. Keep in mind that some of the counties have yet to be confirmed because we're reliant on volunteers to help us with that. We haven't gotten to all 55 counties. Thank you to the volunteers that are working diligently on that. But we now have that republished. It's linked in the blog post. You can go in and see who your county coordinator is if you are a Hope Scholar or you are homeschooled, and you'll be able to compose an email with them, the athletic director, the principal of the school, and get the ball rolling on what your first step is to initiate the process of participating in the WVSSAC. Transfers were granted this year. So if your student is going in 9th through 12th grade and they want to play for a team and participate at a school outside of their attendance area school, they are able to exercise a one-time transfer. They cannot come back to their home school without a penalty or back to that attendance area school. So it's a one-time transfer, 9th through 12th grade. That would give them the potential to participate on a team outside of their attendance area. In 6th, 7th, and 8th, there was a policy passed last year. I'm waiting for confirmation on the WVSSAC on how that's going to be implemented this year, but it did give students a possibility of participating outside of their attendance area school in 6th, 7th, and 8th. If you need guidance, the best thing to do is to fill out our form that is linked in the blog post and drop your question in that form. It's going to connect you directly to our volunteer team. We have someone on staff Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, answering those emails and getting you responses back. If anything gets tricky, it then gets escalated to me. So if you are pursuing 6th, 7th, and 8th outside of your attendance area school, that's going to get pushed over to me, and I will help you in collaborating with the powers that be to get that assistance. Keep in mind that we do have a provider services for in-person schools in West Virginia, our membership package. And for schools that have participated and have subscribed to our membership, we are working with your parents to navigate the assistance in addition to just having the blog post. So if you're watching this and you're an in-person provider, I highly recommend subscribing to our services. I will link to that in the comments. And that allows you, if you have a parent reach out to you and they're wanting to know more about SSAC or even a Hope Scholarship, you're able just to direct them to us instead of feeling the pressure to have to navigate that as the school. And so we have close to 20 providers right now who have subscribed over the last 3 months. and we've been working with them. We'd love to work with your school or your micro school, your in-person private school or virtual charter school to help your parents navigate that. We also have assistance if you are outside of a school, if you're just an IIP Hope Scholar or a homeschooler, we will continue to offer assistance to you. But just keep in mind for those who are enrolled in non-public schools that are not members at this time, guidance will be limited for those parents. And it's just because this is overwhelming and our organization is operating without sustainable funding. So that's what I've got. That's who has access and how they can navigate that and how the few can help you in supporting you in your efforts. If you have questions, fill out the form. And if you have already filled out the form and you just want to be in touch about sports, the email address that you need to know is sports, sports at wvfue.org. I'm Jamie Buckland. I'm excited to hear all of the stories about athletes and band participants. Keep in mind, band is co-curricular. And so in many schools, you will have to take a class in order to participate in band. That's all we've got today. I hope you guys have a great evening and reach out if you have any questions. We will drop the links into the comments.